In the bustling heart of New York, a group of wealthy and privileged young people boarded a bus for a school-organized excursion. These youths, children of influential business people and celebrities, were accustomed to luxury and comfort. The bus trip was part of a school project aimed at showing them the daily lives of ordinary people, an attempt to teach them lessons in humility and empathy. The bus driver was Laura Mitchell, a woman in her early 40s, known for her competence, professionalism, and friendliness. Laura had been a bus driver for over 10 years, and all the regular passengers knew and respected her. She always wore a colorful scarf on her head, a personal choice that had become her trademark. That morning, Laura arrived at the bus terminal, greeting her colleagues with her usual warm smile. She carefully checked the vehicle, ensuring everything was in order for the trip. When it was time to depart, Laura boarded the bus and took the wheel, ready for another day of work. The young people, visibly uninterested in the school project, boarded the bus with arrogant attitudes. They laughed and spoke loudly, completely ignoring Laura's presence. As the bus started moving, one of the youths, named Brad, made a sarcastic comment. "Look, a woman driving the bus," he said, laughing. "I guess we're in unsafe hands." Laura heard the comment, but remained professional. She was used to facing prejudice for being a woman in a male-dominated profession. However, the disdainful attitude of the youths bothered her. She knew she had a job to do and decided to focus on her responsibility of driving the bus safely. The young people continued to make derogatory comments, not only about Laura but also about the bus and the idea of having to participate in an activity they considered beneath their status. "This bus is so old," one of the girls said, wrinkling her nose. "Why couldn't they give us a limousine?" Laura, hearing the comments, remained calm. She knew she needed to prove to these youths that their prejudice was wrong, not just about her but about people living different lives from theirs. As the bus moved through the city streets, Laura drove with skill and confidence, ignoring the laughter and disdainful comments from the back. As the trip continued, some of the regular bus passengers, who knew and respected Laura, began to notice the youth's attitude. Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who took that bus every day to visit her grandson, watched with disapproval. "These young people need to learn some respect," she muttered to herself. Laura, perceiving the unrest among her regular passengers, decided to stay focused on the road. She knew that responding to the youths with the same rudeness would solve nothing. Instead, she planned to show through her actions that she was a competent driver who deserved respect. While the bus passed through a busier part of the city, a car suddenly cut in front, forcing Laura to make a quick maneuver to avoid an accident. The youth screamed, but Laura maintained control of the vehicle with impressive dexterity. She turned the wheel precisely and managed to avoid the car that had cut her off, stabilizing the bus without causing any damage or injury. The regular passengers applauded her skill, but the youths continued to laugh, not realizing the gravity of the situation they had just avoided. "Wow, she really thinks she's a race car driver," Brad sneered, still laughing. Laura, taking a deep breath, knew she had to keep her calm. She looked in the rearview mirror, seeing Mrs. Thompson and other regular passengers smiling and nodding in approval. That was the confirmation that she was doing the right thing, and she was determined to teach the youths a lesson in respect in a way they would never forget. The young people boarded the bus without showing any respect or consideration for the driver. To them, the trip was just an obligation imposed by the school, something they had to endure until they could return to the comfort of their privileged lives. As soon as they settled into their seats, they started talking loudly and making jokes, completely oblivious to the impact their words might have on Laura. Brad, the informal leader of the group, was the first to make a sarcastic comment about Laura. "Look, a woman driving the bus," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I guess we're in unsafe hands." The other youths laughed, encouraged by Brad's disdainful attitude. Laura heard the comment, but kept her focus on the road. She had faced prejudice before and knew that the best way to deal with it was to demonstrate her competence. However, the youth's attitude was particularly irritating because it reflected a lack of respect that went beyond simple sexism. It was a complete devaluation of anyone outside their elitist circle. As the youths continued to make derogatory comments, the regular bus passengers began to notice what was happening. Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who used the bus daily, felt compelled to intervene. "You should have more respect," she said firmly, turning to face the youths. "Laura is one of the best drivers I've ever known. She takes us safely every day." The youths laughed at Mrs. Thompson's intervention, but Laura felt comforted by her support. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson," she said, looking in the rearview mirror and offering a warm smile. The presence of her regular passengers gave her strength to continue and face the youth's disdain with dignity. The youths, unsatisfied with Mrs. Thompson's reprimand, continued to make jokes and derogatory comments. "This bus is so old," said one of the girls, named Jessica, wrinkling her nose. "Why couldn't they give us a limousine?" Brad, wanting to maintain his leadership of the group, added, "I bet the driver can only drive these old junkers. Imagine if she had to drive a real car." Laura heard everything but decided she wouldn't let the youth's comments affect her. She knew she needed to stay calm and continue doing her job professionally. Deep down, she hoped to find a way to show these youths the importance of respect and empathy. As the bus followed its route through the streets of New York, Laura decided it was time to take action. She knew that continuing to ignore the comments wouldn't solve the problem. So, when they reached a stop, Laura turned off the engine and turned to face the youths. "Listen up, all of you," she said, her voice firm but calm. "I understand that this trip may not be what you expected, but we're all here together, and I deserve the same respect you expect to receive. My job is to ensure everyone gets to their destination safely, and I take that very seriously." The youths were surprised by Laura's attitude. They didn't expect her to confront them directly. Brad, trying to maintain his composure, laughed nervously. "Sure, driver. Let's see what you can do." Laura started the engine again and continued the trip, feeling that she had at least planted a seed of reflection in the youths. She knew that change wouldn't happen immediately, but she was determined to keep showing through her actions that she deserved respect. As the bus moved on, Laura began planning a way to teach the youths an even more significant lesson. She knew she needed to do something that would show not only her driving skill, but also the importance of not judging people by their appearance or profession. She decided that at some point during the trip, she would make an unexpected detour. She would take the youths to a more upscale part of the city, a place they probably knew well. There, she would show her driving skills in an environment they considered worthy of their presence. Laura hoped that by doing this, she could open the youth's eyes to the value and competence she possessed, regardless of her gender or profession. As they approached the city center, Laura prepared to make the detour. She knew the youths would probably react with surprise and possibly more mockery, but she was determined to go ahead. When she reached an intersection that allowed for a route change, Laura skillfully and precisely maneuvered the bus onto an unexpected path. The youths, realizing the change, began to murmur and laugh again. "What's she doing now?" Jessica asked, intrigued. Brad, still wanting to maintain his arrogant attitude, said, "Let's see if she can drive in a decent place." Laura, keeping calm and focused, knew she was about to show these youths something they would never forget. The atmosphere on the bus was tense. As Laura made the unexpected detour to a more upscale neighborhood, the youths continued to make derogatory comments. However, the regular bus passengers, who knew and respected Laura, began to feel more uncomfortable and irritated by the youth's attitude. Laura, maintaining her professionalism, drove skillfully through the busy streets of New York. She knew her decision to change the route was risky, but she was determined to show the youth something that might open their eyes. As she navigated the streets, she looked in the rearview mirror and observed the passengers' expressions. Mrs. Thompson, sitting near the front, looked at Laura with a mix of concern and support. Sensing the tension in the air, Mrs. Thompson decided to intervene again. She struggled to her feet and walked to the middle of the bus, where the youths were sitting. "Listen up, young people," she began, her voice firm and determined. "Do you think you can mock someone just because of their job or appearance? Laura is one of the most competent and dedicated drivers I've ever known. You should learn to respect people, regardless of who they are or what they do." The youths looked at Mrs. Thompson with disdain, but she continued, "Everyone on this bus deserves respect. You're here to learn about life outside your luxury bubble. Maybe it's time you started paying attention." Mrs. Thompson's words caused a brief silence on the bus. Some youths seemed ashamed, while others continued to laugh nervously. Brad, trying to maintain his arrogant posture, muttered something about old people always knowing everything, but Mrs. Thompson's intervention had planted a seed of doubt. Laura, watching everything through the rearview mirror, felt strengthened by Mrs. Thompson's words. She knew the battle to change the youth's attitudes wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to move forward. As she approached the upscale neighborhood, she began to think about how she could show her skill in an impactful way. The bus entered the elegant neighborhood, where the streets were lined with well-maintained trees and imposing houses. The youths, accustomed to these scenes, began to comment on the properties and question the presence of the bus there. "What's she trying to prove?" Jessica asked, looking out the window. Laura remained calm and focused. She drove through the narrow, busy streets with a skill that surprised some of the youths. They expected her to make mistakes or feel intimidated, but Laura maintained full control of the bus, navigating precisely through curves and avoiding obstacles with ease. As Laura demonstrated her skill, some of the youths began to realize they had underestimated her competence. They watched in silence as she maneuvered the bus expertly, feeling increasingly uncomfortable with their previous attitudes. Brad, still trying to maintain his image as the group's leader, looked at his friends and said, "Maybe she's not as bad as we thought." Jessica and the others nodded, beginning to reflect on their actions. Laura drove the bus to a scenic viewpoint offering a stunning view of the city. "Let's take a break here," she said, turning off the engine and standing up. "I want everyone to get off and enjoy the view. We have something to discuss." The youths got off the bus, still surprised by Laura's confidence. As they gathered at the viewpoint, Laura removed the scarf she wore on her head, revealing short, elegant hair. "I think it's time you knew a little more about me," she began. Laura told the youths about her past as a race car driver. "Before becoming a bus driver, I was a race car driver," she said, showing a scar on her forehead. "This scar is from an accident I had in a race. I had to leave my career, but I never lost my love for driving." The youths were silent, shocked by the revelation. "I chose to be a bus driver because I love driving and want to help people," Laura explained. "But don't think that means I'm any less capable. Every person you meet has a story, and judging someone by their appearance or job is a big mistake." The youths were silent, processing Laura's words. Brad, visibly ashamed, stepped forward. I'm sorry, Laura," he said, his voice full of remorse. We shouldn't have judged you without knowing your story. The other youths also began to apologize, realizing the seriousness of their actions. Laura accepted the apologies, but made it clear that it was important to learn from this experience. Respect is something everyone deserves, she said. I hope you remember this in the future. The tension on the bus had eased a bit after Mrs. Thompson's intervention, but the youths were still far from learning the lesson. Brad, Jessica, and the others continued with their arrogant conversations, unaware that they were about to experience something that would change their perspectives forever. Laura, driving skillfully through the streets of New York, knew she needed to do something more impactful to teach a lasting lesson to the youths. As they approached a busy intersection, she decided it was time to change the route and take them to a place where they could see her skills in an environment they considered superior. With a determined look, Laura turned the wheel and entered an avenue that led to a sophisticated neighborhood in the city. The youths, noticing the change, began to question her intentions. "Hey, where are you taking us?" Brad asked with a disdainful tone. "This isn't on the route." Laura, remaining calm, replied, "I decided it would be interesting to show you a little more of the city. Enjoy the view." The youths laughed, believing Laura was just trying to impress them. "Let's see if she can drive there without getting lost," Jessica said with a sarcastic laugh. However, the regular passengers, like Mrs. Thompson, understood that Laura had a plan. They remained silent, trusting the driver and waiting to see what would happen next. As the bus advanced through the more elegant and well-maintained streets, the youths became more attentive. The designer shops, sophisticated restaurants, and imposing mansions were part of their daily lives. But seeing them from inside a regular bus was a new experience. Laura, without losing her composure, drove skillfully through the narrow, busy streets. She maneuvered the bus with precision, avoiding obstacles and dealing with heavy traffic with a skill that surprised even the most experienced drivers. The youths began to realize that Laura was an exceptional driver. Brad, still trying to maintain his superior attitude, commented, "Maybe she's lucky. Let's see how long that lasts." Laura, hearing the comment, decided to take the experience a step further. She chose a street known for its difficult navigation due to construction and constant traffic. The youths remained silent as Laura skillfully maneuvered the bus, demonstrating an impressive calm and precision. When Laura finally stopped the bus at a scenic viewpoint offering a stunning view of the city, the youths were silent. "Let's take a break here," she said, turning off the engine and standing up. "I want everyone to get off and enjoy the view. We have something to discuss." The youths got off the bus, still surprised by Laura's skill. As they gathered at the viewpoint, Laura removed the scarf she wore on her head, revealing short, elegant hair. "I think it's time you knew a little more about me," she began, looking directly at the youths. "Before becoming a bus driver, I was a race car driver. This scar on my forehead is from an accident I had in a race." The youths were silent, shocked by the revelation. Laura continued, "I had to leave my career as a driver, but I never lost my love for driving. I chose to be a bus driver because I love driving and want to help people, but don't think that means I'm any less capable." The youths began to process Laura's words. Brad, who had been the most arrogant, stepped forward. I'm sorry, Laura," he said, his voice full of remorse. "We shouldn't have judged you without knowing your story." The other youths also began to apologize, realizing the seriousness of their actions. Laura accepted the apologies, but made it clear that it was important to learn from this experience. "Respect is something everyone deserves," she said. "I hope you remember this in the future." The break at the scenic viewpoint gave the youths time to reflect on their attitudes. They began talking among themselves, discussing how they had underestimated Laura and the impact of their prejudices. Some even started to see the value in understanding people's stories before judging them. When they finally returned to the bus, the atmosphere had changed. The youths were calmer and more respectful. Laura, observing this change, felt she had managed to plant a seed of reflection and empathy. Laura started the engine and began driving back to the original route. The youths, now more humble, observed the city with new eyes. They realized that everyone, regardless of their profession or appearance, had a story and deserved respect. The regular passengers, pleased with the youth's change in attitude, began to talk and share their own stories, creating an environment of mutual understanding and learning. After the surprising revelation about Laura's past as a race car driver, the atmosphere at the scenic viewpoint changed drastically. The youths, who had previously laughed and made sarcastic comments, were now reflecting on their attitudes. Laura decided to take advantage of this moment to deepen the lesson she wanted to teach. Laura knew that the revelation about her past as a race car driver had made an impact, but she wanted to ensure that the message of respect and empathy truly sank in. She decided that the best way to do this was by showing even more of her skill and determination. "Let's get back on the bus," Laura said calmly. "We have one more stop before we return to our original itinerary." The youths followed Laura back to the bus, now more respectful and curious about what she had planned. Brad, still trying to process everything that had happened, looked at Laura with newfound admiration. "What are you going to show us now?" he asked. Laura smiled, starting the bus. "You'll see," she replied, leaving an air of mystery. Laura drove the bus confidently through the upscale neighborhood, returning to the busy city traffic. As she drove, she explained a bit more about her decision to become a bus driver. "After my accident, I needed to find a way to continue doing what I love. Driving gives me a sense of freedom and purpose." The youths listened attentively, absorbing every word. Laura knew that the real lesson was yet to come, and she was determined to make the most of the opportunity. Laura drove the bus to a local racetrack, which was open for visits that day. The youths were intrigued to see the location, recognizing it as one of the city's major racing venues. "Let's get off here," Laura said, parking the bus. "I want to show you something special." The youths got off the bus, following Laura into the racetrack. The track was empty, but the atmosphere was electrifying. Laura led them to a small museum inside the racetrack, where trophies, photos, and memorabilia of famous drivers were displayed, including some photos of herself. Brad and the other youths were impressed to see photos of Laura in her races, holding trophies and smiling for the cameras. "Wow, you really were an incredible driver," Jessica said, looking at the photos. Laura smiled, feeling proud of her past but also of the impact she was having on the youths. "I was part of a very respected racing team," she explained, "and I learned that no matter what we do, it's passion and dedication that define us." After the museum visit, Laura led the youths to the racetrack. "Now, I want to show you something more," she said, with a sparkle in her eye. "I have special permission to drive on the track today. You're going to see a bit of what I used to do." The youths were excited and thrilled. Laura got into one of the available race cars and, with a powerful roar of the engine, began speeding around the track. She made tight turns, accelerated on the straightaways, and performed maneuvers that left everyone impressed. Seeing Laura in action on the racetrack was the final confirmation for the youths that they had underestimated her skill and dedication. When Laura stopped the car and got out, the youths gave her a standing ovation, now completely won over by her competence and humility. Brad, visibly moved, approached Laura. "Laura, I really apologize for how we acted before. You're an inspiration to all of us." Laura smiled, touched by Brad's sincerity. Thank you, Brad. The most important thing is to learn from our mistakes and grow from them. Never underestimate anyone, because everyone has a story and skills that deserve respect. With their hearts and minds more open, the youths returned to the bus with a new perspective. Laura drove back to the original itinerary, but the trip was now marked by respectful and curious conversations. The youths began to ask sincere questions to Laura about her life, her experiences, and what motivated her. She answered all of them with patience and wisdom, seizing the opportunity to teach valuable lessons about respect, empathy, and the importance of never judging a book by its cover. Laura's lesson wasn't just about driving skills or her past career, but about the essence of human respect. She showed the youth that everyone, regardless of their profession or appearance, deserved to be valued for who they are. When they finally reached the final destination, the youths got off the bus with a sense of gratitude. Brad, on behalf of the group, thanked Laura. Thank you for teaching us so much today, Laura. We will never forget this lesson. Laura smiled, feeling fulfilled. It was a pleasure. Always remember, respect and empathy are fundamental, and never underestimate the power of people's stories. The youths nodded, promising to carry these lessons into the future. The experience with Laura had planted seeds of change that would continue to grow and influence their lives. After the deep conversation at the scenic viewpoint, the youths began to see Laura with new eyes. Her story of overcoming and determination not only earned their respect, but also sparked a genuine interest in getting to know her better. Laura, in turn, was willing to continue sharing her experiences and learning from the youths as well. Back on the bus, Laura felt the atmosphere had changed significantly. The youths, now more introspective, began talking among themselves about what they had learned. Brad, still reflecting on everything, turned to Laura as she drove. Laura, you mentioned that recovering after the accident was difficult. How did you find the strength to continue and choose a new path? He asked, his voice full of curiosity and respect. Laura smiled at hearing Brad's sincere question. It was a long and painful process, she replied, but the support of my family and friends was essential. Besides, I knew that somehow I wanted to keep driving. It was that passion that gave me the strength to move forward and find a new way to do what I love. As the bus continued its journey, the youths kept asking Laura questions about her life and choices. Jessica, sitting further ahead, asked, "Do you ever regret leaving racing?" Laura thought for a moment before answering. There were times when I missed the adrenaline of racing, of course, but I never regretted finding a new purpose. Being a bus driver allows me to help people daily, and that brings me enormous satisfaction. I've learned that it doesn't matter what we do, but how we do it and the impact we have on others' lives. The youth's questions were no longer filled with sarcasm, but with genuine curiosity. They wanted to learn from Laura and understand how to apply the lessons she had shared in their own lives. Laura, in turn, felt inspired by the youth's willingness to grow and change. Brad, wanting to show his support, suggested, "Laura, is there anything we can do to help the shelter where you work? Maybe we can organize a fundraiser or something." Laura was surprised and touched by the offer. "That would be wonderful, Brad. The shelter always needs support, whether financial or volunteer. Any help would be very welcome." Brad's idea was met with enthusiasm by the other youths. They began discussing ways to organize a charity event to support Laura's shelter. "We could have a bake sale," suggested Jessica, "or maybe a sports event where we can raise money." Laura watched with a smile, seeing the transformation happening before her eyes. "I appreciate your initiative very much," she said. The most important thing is that you're showing you care and are willing to make a difference. That's something you should never forget. While discussing the details of the charity event, the bus reached the next destination, an area of the city where Laura often took passengers to see a different side of urban life. It was a community in recovery, where revitalization projects were transforming the neighborhood. Laura parked the bus and invited the youths to get off. "I want to show you a very special project," she said. "This is one of the places where the shelter has helped transform lives." The youths followed Laura as she guided them through the community, showing them the revitalization projects and introducing some of the people who had benefited from the shelter. They met families who had received help rebuilding their homes, youth receiving education and job training, and volunteers dedicating their time to improving the community. Brad, visibly moved, commented, "It's incredible to see the impact the shelter is having here. I never imagined a place could make such a difference." Laura smiled, feeling proud. "That's exactly what I want you to see. Every act of kindness, every effort to help, creates a ripple effect that transforms lives. And everyone can contribute in some way." By the end of the visit, the youths were deeply touched by the experience. They understood that Laura's work went far beyond driving a bus. She was directly involved in changing lives and building a better future for many. Back on the bus, the conversation continued, but now it was filled with purpose and commitment. The youths decided that, in addition to organizing the charity event, they would volunteer regularly at the shelter and in the community. The relationship between Laura and the youths had completely transformed. The respect and admiration were mutual, and there was a deep understanding of the life lessons Laura had shared. They were no longer just passengers on a bus, but partners on a journey of growth and empathy. When they finally reached the final destination, the youths got off the bus with a renewed sense of purpose. They had learned a valuable lesson about respect, empathy, and the importance of making a difference in others' lives. Laura, in turn, felt grateful for the opportunity to impact these youths' lives so profoundly. After the visit to the revitalized community, the youths returned to the bus with a renewed sense of purpose. The conversations during the ride back were deep and reflective, with each of them opening up about their own lives and experiences. Laura, perceiving the transformation in the youths, felt she had built a genuine connection with them. Back on the bus, Laura observed the youths discussing their ideas for the charity event with enthusiasm. "It seems everyone is really excited about this," she commented, smiling. "I'm very proud of you all for wanting to make a difference." Brad, still visibly moved by the visit, replied, "Laura, you've shown us a side of life we never knew. We want to give back in some way." Jessica, who had previously been one of the most sarcastic, added, "Yes, and we want to do it right. Not just to impress, but to really help." The youths began detailing their plans for the charity event. They decided to organize a community fair in the park, with various activities to raise funds and raise awareness about the shelter's work. There would be food and beverage sales, games and competitions, and musical and artistic performances. Laura offered suggestions based on her experience with community events. Make sure to involve the community from the start. When people feel like they're part of something, they become more engaged. To ensure everything ran smoothly, the youths divided the responsibilities among themselves. Brad was in charge of coordinating sports activities, while Jessica would handle musical performances. Other youths took on tasks like event promotion, booth organization, and donation management. Laura offered to help coordinate everything, using her experience to guide the youths. "You're doing a wonderful job," she said. "I'm sure this event will be a great success." In the following days, the youths worked tirelessly to organize the community fair. They visited the shelter several times, getting to know the people who would benefit from the event better. Each visit reinforced their commitment and motivation to make a difference. Brad, during one of these visits, commented, "It's incredible to see how something we started as a school project is becoming so meaningful. I'm really happy we're doing this." The day of the event arrived, and the park was bustling with the presence of community residents, shelter volunteers, and of course, the youths who had organized everything. There were food stalls, games for children, musical performances, and a donation area. The atmosphere was one of joy and unity. Laura arrived early to help with the final preparations. She found Brad and Jessica adjusting the booths and coordinating the volunteers. "You've done an incredible job," she said, full of pride. "Everything is perfect." During the event, the youth showed a new maturity and responsibility. Brad efficiently coordinated the sports activities, ensuring everyone had fun. Jessica, in turn, managed the musical performances, highlighting local talents and keeping the energy high. Laura walked around the fair, interacting with visitors and ensuring everything ran smoothly. She was moved to see the event's impact on the community. "This is the power of empathy and action," she thought, watching the youths work with dedication and passion. At the end of the day, the youths gathered on the main stage to thank everyone present. Brad took the microphone with a smile and said, "We want to thank everyone for being here today. This event is about more than raising funds. It's about building a stronger, united community. And we couldn't have done this without all of your support." Jessica continued, "We also want to thank Laura especially. Without your inspiration and guidance, none of this would have been possible. You showed us the true meaning of respect and empathy." Laura, moved, took the stage and received warm applause. "Thank you all," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I am extremely proud of each of you. You have shown that together, we can make a difference. This is just the beginning of something very special." The event was a resounding success, raising significant funds for the shelter and increasing awareness about the community's needs. More than that, the experience transformed the youths, teaching them valuable lessons about social responsibility, empathy, and teamwork. Back on the bus after the event, the youths were exhausted but happy. "I never imagined something like this could be so rewarding," Brad said. Reflecting on the journey, Laura smiled, feeling fulfilled. "What you did today shows the power of collective action. Never underestimate the impact you can have on the world." The youths got off the bus at the end of the day, full of gratitude and new learnings. They knew that the journey of learning and growth they had started with Laura was just the beginning. With her support and guidance, they were ready to continue making a difference in their lives and the lives of others. After months of hard work and dedication, the impact of the youth's actions, guided by Laura, began to spread beyond their school and local community. The story of transformation and empathy that had started with a simple bus trip was now inspiring other schools and communities to get involved in social actions. The school volunteer program gained attention in the local media. Newspapers, radio stations, and TV channels began covering the students' success stories and the positive impact they were having on the community. Laura was invited to participate in several interviews, where she shared her story and talked about the importance of respect, empathy, and community service. "It's not about what you do, but how you do it and the impact you have on people's lives," Laura said in one of the interviews. "These young people have shown that small actions can lead to great changes." The program's success attracted the attention of educational and charity organizations across the country. Brad, Jessica, and Laura were invited to speak at conferences and seminars about the importance of youth volunteering and the transformative power of empathy. At one of these conferences, Brad spoke about his own transformation. I used to be arrogant and disrespectful, thinking my social status made me superior. Laura showed me that the true value of a person lies in their actions and how we treat others. With the growing interest, the school decided to expand the volunteer program to include more activities and involve a larger number of students. New clubs were formed, each focused on different aspects of community service, such as elder care, environmental protection, and homelessness support. Jessica took the lead of a club dedicated to environmental protection. I learned that we have a responsibility not only to people, but also to the planet, she said. We can make a difference in so many areas, and I'm excited to see where this will take us. The United Hearts Foundation, created by Laura and the youths, began forming partnerships with local and national companies. These collaborations brought additional resources and expanded the reach of volunteer activities. One of these partnerships was with a major technology company, which provided equipment and training for the volunteer students. We are proud to support this incredible initiative, said the company's CEO during a donation ceremony. These young people are doing wonderful work, and we want to help them achieve even more. The impact of the volunteer program began to be felt not only in the community but also in the lives of the youth themselves. Many reported how their life perspectives had changed and how they were more motivated and engaged in their school and personal activities. One such story was that of Sarah, a student who had struggled with self-esteem issues. Participating in the volunteer program gave me a purpose, she said. I learned that I can make a difference and that my voice matters. It changed my life for the better. Laura continued to be a dedicated and inspiring mentor to the youths. She accompanied them in their activities, offered guidance, and shared her own life experience. Her commitment to the well-being of the youths and the community was unwavering. Laura showed us the way, but it was our decision to follow that path, Brad said at a recognition event, and she is always there to support us, guide us, and inspire us to be better. At the end of the school year, the school organized a large celebration to recognize the success of the volunteer program and thank everyone involved. The event was attended by students, parents, community members, and corporate partners. Laura was honored with a special recognition award. "This award is for all of you," she said as she accepted the honor. "You are living proof that with empathy and action, we can transform the world around us." With the program's success and the positive impact it had generated, the youths began planning for the future. They wanted to ensure that the initiatives continued to grow and benefit even more people. Brad and Jessica, now graduates, decided they would continue their volunteer work in college and beyond. "We will take this experience with us wherever we go," Jessica said, "and we will continue to spread the message of empathy and action." The story of Laura and the youths became an inspiration for many. It showed that, regardless of our backgrounds or circumstances, we all have the ability to make a difference. The volunteer program was not just a school activity, but a movement of positive change that would continue to grow and impact lives. The lasting impact of Laura and the youth's actions was evident in all aspects of their lives and the community. They had learned valuable lessons about respect, empathy, and social responsibility, and they were determined to continue making a difference. Laura, looking at the youth she had helped transform, felt a deep sense of fulfillment and hope. "You are proof that with determination and heart, we can change the world," she said, with tears in her eyes. "And I am extremely proud of each of you." The youths, now leaders in their own right, promised to continue Laura's legacy, inspiring and motivating others to join them on the journey of doing good.